1972 Volkswagen bus, Type 4 engine with new Weber carbs and the highly sought after SyncLinc carb sync system. So got that from the Samba, from Pete on the Samba, about 325 bucks, I believe it was. He supplied the brackets, the pulleys, the cables, the housing, the jam nuts, a little bit of instructions, but because it's dual carbs, there's so many different ways these could go. He did not have the exact directions for this particular application. The bus with a Type 4 engine and a standard OEM fan. He did have a couple of sets of directions with the down the middle fan that Jake makes, but nothing for this. So anyway, I'm documenting what I did here. So first thing we did was we talked a little bit on email, and he suggested I flip side to side these two carbs because my butterflies were not turning the right direction. So as I step on the gas, which is this cable here, this butterfly will turn clockwise towards the center line of the engine. And when that happens, this bottom cable pulls as well. So that both cables are attached over here in those little slots. So you pull this one and it pulls the bottom one. Pull, 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 okay? So the bottom one goes across the engine right here. Recommended to put that down close to the case, so I did that. And it comes up to this side, which just has the one single vertical bracket. And you can see my cable's pretty well lined up with my pulley, so that's a good thing. This particular end of the cable is, you can see I can just pull it out of that jam nut. It's not connected to the jam nut, where on this side, both jam nuts are swedged onto that cable housing. I didn't see anything written that they needed to be on this side, but it seems to make sense that that's what I needed to do, because it did say instructions that this one threads into this hole on the bottom side, and this is just an open hole where it slides in, and then you can use a jam nut to tighten it down. This side just has an open hole as well, and you thread that, you run that thread in, put your jam nut on there, and there's a ferrule here after you cut your housing to the right length. So the housing came, in this case, it was probably only about 1 inch longer than shown here. Some of the things that he talked about are these nuts that hold the carburetors onto the throttle bodies. They might need to be replaced with a little bit longer ones, or possibly just thread them out a turn or two to get them with plenty of meat for the nuts to grab onto on those threads. So on this one, you can kind of feel the bottom of the stud, and you can barely see it on top, so it fit. I mean, I got threads all the way through the throttle body, threads all the way through the nut, so that's good. On this side, which there was no adjustment, no change, you can see a few threads, and I can feel a few on the bottom as well. So I did not need to replace those. They came with the Webers, and they were just barely long enough, as you can see. So, as I mentioned, it's critical to have the pulleys lined up. This one's lined up with that bracket. There's adjustment on that vertical bracket, but this is adjusted in as far as it'll go. So I end up having to add a couple washers to the back of that pulley to make it all line up. This side, same thing. You have the adjustment slot, but I did not have to add any washers, and I got perfect alignment there. So again, we have a few critical things that aren't in the directions, and that's where I'm at now. So the next thing will be to connect the other end of that to the gas pedal as soon as I put the engine in. So there we go, Type 4 dual carb SyncLinc setup.